Welcome back to the Pair program. I'm your host, Tim Winkler. And for our loyal listeners, you will realize that we're missing a familiar face on today's episode. My co-host, Mike Gruen, is out this week at a security conference, AuthCon. So I will be flying solo today. But I usually kick every episode off with a little bit of a random banter back and forth with my co-host. So since he's gone, I'm gonna riff with you guys here. Paul and Dan, welcome to the pod. And quick random kind of question. I'll try to keep it in theme of today's episode. But you've both been around boats for a number of years and served some time with the Navy. What's the best kind of boat name that you've ever seen or been a part of? I guess I'll start with you, Paul.
The best boat name, I think ours, right? We call ours Rampage.
Yeah, that's awesome.
After obviously going with the Havoc name, and the other one is called Sea Hound. But I'm trying to remember, didn't the British have the best name ever? They were trying to name a boat, and it was like McBoaty Face or something like that. They crowdsourced it. You know what I'm talking about? Like last year,
sounds familiar.
They crowdsourced the name.
They crowdsourced the name.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. Bodie McBoatface that they crowdsourced.
Bodie McBoatface. Yeah.
And then they actually changed that to the name of their ROV, or the remotely operated vehicle. And I forget, they named the boat after some sir somebody or other. So
we thought about crowdsourcing our boat names, and we're like, we're not going to do that. We can say you got to stay with it. Right?
That one backfired. Dan, what do you got? What's a good boat name that you've means something to you?
Well, and sticking with the theme here, I'm going to go with Kaikoa. That's what we're calling our new partnership for our 42-foot vessel. So Kai is Hawaiian for sea, and Koa is Hawaiian for warrior, so the Sea Warrior.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I think I saw one on the water not long ago. It's Seize the Day. It's like good pun to it, but fun little theme to it as well. Awesome. All right. Well, yeah, little teaser on today's episode is all about autonomy, but not in the usual kind of airborne or AI only way that we've seen kind of dominate a lot of headlines. We're going to be talking about autonomy on the water, and more specifically what it takes to bring autonomous vessels from concept to production at scale. This isn't just a conversation about fancy software or futuristic military slides. We're going to be talking about boots on the boat collaboration with two guests that we've got joining us who are teaming up to turn unmanned surface vessels into scalable maritime capability for both the defense and commercial markets. So first off, we've got Paul Lwin, the founder and CEO of HavocAI, a company launched recently with a bold vision to field thousands of autonomous multi-mission surface vessels using an approach that blends commercial boat building with advanced autonomy. Paul's background spans AI, autonomy, defense innovation, the Navy, and he's laser focused on making maritime autonomy affordable, scalable, and ready for real world deployment. So Paul, thanks for joining us on the pod.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And then alongside Paul is Dan Brunk, the CEO of PacMar Technologies. Dan leads a company with deep roots in naval architecture and defense maritime design, including work on swath vessels, survivable hull forms, and computational fluid dynamics. PacMar has been innovating in this space since the 70s, I believe you mentioned, Dan, and today they're pushing forward with the new generation of vessels built for rough waters, rapid integration, and autonomous missions. So Dan, thank you for also joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity to share what PacMar is doing.
Absolutely. So together, Havoc and PacMar are building an ecosystem that's not just of platforms, but of production ready capability. And that's what we're going to explore a little bit more in this conversation. But before we dive into the deep end here, we warm up with a fun segment that we call Pair Me Up. This is where we kind of go around the room, toss out a pairing that just kind of works. It could be tech related, food related, or completely random. So I'll lead us off and then I'll pass it to our guest. But for today's pairing, I'm going to go with pressure washing and instant gratification. So we're doing some projects on our rental home here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And one of those projects is painting our deck. And prior to doing so, we've been pressure washing. And there's just something magical about just pulling the trigger and watching years of grime just kind of disappear in a single sweep. It's one of the most satisfying kind of like chores, I'd say. And it can be quite addicting, right? You start with the deck, and the next thing you know, you've pressure washed your entire driveway and the house siding. But that's going to be my parents' top of mind for me in the moment. So I'll go with pressure washing and instant gratification. And yeah, sounds like Dan, you were in a similar situation not long ago here this weekend.
Yes, I certainly had the opportunity to pressure wash my my back patio.
There you go. All right, well, let's pass it around to the guest. Dan, quick intro and your pairing for today.
So thanks again for having us on the podcast. So I'd have to go with our pairing. I'm going to say volunteerism and youth development. So just looking forward to this weekend. I've been volunteering with what's now called Scouting America, formerly Boy Scouts of America, and just really looking at developing our youth. So this weekend we're going to hold a Eagle Scout Court of Honor for 9 different Eagle Scouts that we've produced out of our troop over the last about 9 months. So really look forward with that, and it's always just great to watch these young individuals grow up to be a lot more than what they started, gaining self-confidence, gaining confidence in the outdoors, and just learning leadership and citizenship.
That's awesome. Yeah, I did scouts growing up as a kid, and some of the best memories, when in those early developmental phases, just really sculpting the next generation of leaders. How big's like the troop? Like how many folks do you get out there?
So the troop I'm associated with, we're down a little bit from where we were. We're probably 45 to 50 right now, total boys. We're just we're still a boy only troop on our side. So
cool, nice. Well, thanks for volunteering and helping the next generation of leaders. Paul, quick intro and your pairing.
Yeah, my name's Paul. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Havoc. So I'll keep the theme with kids, right? Kids and playground. So I've got a 4.5-year-old and a 5-month-old. And, I think both of you have kids. So I think without playgrounds on the weekends, I don't know how I would survive. So I think, I've been to only hundreds of playgrounds over the last 4 years. And I think I was recently in San Diego for work and, working with a teammate of mine who doesn't have kids. And we walked by a playground and I was like, oh, this is a really cool playground. Like, I was like, my kid could spend hours on this. They just looked at me like, what are you talking about? Just checking out a random playground. Just, this week spent hours on the playground with my 4.5-year-old. So now that the weather's nice, it makes it easy.
Yeah, super relatable. I got a 2-year-old, and she is just getting into the playground phase, really. And she's running around, and it's interesting to see, like, what things intimidate her and which things that she's on board with. Swings are still slowly getting into the swings, but she's all about slides. Yeah, it's cool. We love it. It's a good activity. It's also a good way to kind of keep the kids socialized, meet some new kids and stuff like that. So. I dig it. All right. Well, let's kind of transition into the heart of today's episode. So, as I mentioned earlier, this episode we'll talk through how a startup and a shipyard are kind of teaming up to rethink how we build and deploy autonomous vessels at scale, and what it takes to make that vision real in a time when both the defense and commercial sectors are in need of speed and cost efficiency and capability at sea. So let's get into it, Paul. Let's start with you. Maybe give us a little bit of the backstory behind HavocAI and what sparked the idea and what problem kind of were you dead set on solving?
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for having me here. But Havoc is a collaborative autonomy startup. We're just focused on the maritime space right now because it's very relevant and urgent. So if you think about for defense, but very simply, what we're trying to do is make Admiral Paparo's vision of making the Pacific and unmanned hellscape a reality. That means building the systems required to build thousands of boats and for humans to operate thousands of boats. And we're hoping if we're successfully able to do that, that this would prevent a war, right? But if there is a war, it would help win it. And for the commercial space, it's the same thing. We need to monitor large areas of the ocean. And so we're building affordable systems that are required to monitor large areas of the ocean. So a little bit about my background, I think Havoc, it's something that is very personal to me. I came to the US when I was 10 as a refugee. The first time I saw someone in the U.S. uniform was at the embassy when they got us out. So you can imagine, the United States and the military specifically is something that's always represented safety and security to me. So when I was deciding where to go to college, I decided to go to the Naval Academy. And after the academy, I flew combat missions in Iraq and Afghanistan. And luckily got the chance to become a test pilot. And as a test pilot, you get to look 10 years into the future to see what a conflict of the future will look like. And for me, it was the Pacific, understanding the fight that was going to happen in the Pacific and understanding some of the problems. And so like a lot of people my age, a lot of us ended up leaving the military because we realized that we needed to inject innovation into defense tech again, and only the private sector could do that. So a lot of us ended up as defense tech companies and venture capital firms. And luckily for me, last year we got the chance to start Havoc just because we didn't believe that any of the competitors in the current space, in the maritime space, were listening to the DoD. The DoD saying we need thousands of vessels over the next year, and they're still building 1 or 2 remote-controlled boats and saying they can build hundreds. And so we set out to do it. We're 18 months old. We've already built 42 autonomous vessels and delivered 32 to defense customers.
Wow, super impressive. Yeah, it was kind of like some foreshadowing there. You were destined to be in this position that you're in at Havoc. Very cool. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about this partnership, with you all and PacMar. But Dan, PacMar has deep roots that go all the way back to, in our discovery call, you mentioned a 1944, shipyard. Talk to me a little bit about how has that, foundation evolved into where you are today with composite design, autonomy, and defense kind of first engineering.
So our company traces our roots back at the top level to 1944 when my owner's father actually split off from the Pacific or the Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard and formed a Pacific Marine and Supply Company. And one of their first contracts was to tropicalize the landing craft and other ships coming from the European theater over to the Pacific theater during World War II. So long history of working with shipyards and being innovative in that space. And that has formed a bunch of different companies over the years. For once there was there's an opportunity and a need to look at disposal of some hazardous waste on Pearl Harbor. So we formed up a company called Unitac that became a hazardous waste mitigation company, one of the first ones in Hawaii in the 70s. So it just goes to our innovative entrepreneurial approach to everything. So in 1978, my owner Stephen Louis, he's always had a passion for ship design, stable ship control. We won't talk about whether he got seasick out on the waters off of Hawaii all the time, and he just wanted something that would not make him seasick. So really, headed down that path. We did some of the original small waterplane area twin hulls or swath vessels that were out there. We operated 2 of them, commercialized it into the Hawaiian dinner cruise circuit. You'll see them a couple of the Jurassic Park movies as the ships that were taking people over to the Jurassic Park island. So that's really our nature is, stable ship control, stable ship design, and innovating also. So one of the things being in Hawaii, the access to tow tanks for doing naval architecture things is very limited there. So, again, that innovation to say, hey, we're going to get on the bottom floor of some of this, computerized ship design, which has become computational fluid dynamics. And we think we can take the tow tanks largely out of the equation right now as we're doing ship design. So, a little bit Paul gave his background. So I'm the product of of two enlisted members in the Navy.
Uh-huh.
And, also grew up looking at that and had a lot of Naval Marine Corps background in my family. And went to the Naval Academy and spent 30 years as a submarine officer. But after I was done with my commander command, it was a lot of, innovations type space at the Office of Naval Intelligence, supporting the acquisition community and trying to say what the threats were. And then over at the Navy staff doing some special projects, and then I ended up over at DARPA for my last 3 years. So really have a passion for exactly what Paul says, is to innovate in this space and understand what the needs are.
Mm. Yeah, actually, I went down a rabbit hole, Dan, just on PacMar and the shipyard, and there was like a time lapse video that you guys put together of like a dry docking and the shipbuilding process. It was really fascinating. But a lot goes into it, and let's kind of unpack a little bit of this, right? So let's talk about this partnership. How did Havoc and PacMar kind of link up to begin with?
Yeah, for us, we're obviously software focused, right? We ended up having to partner with boat builders and figure out how to integrate a lot of hardware. But at the core of our company is understanding that when you're talking about thousands of vessels, that is a software problem. And a lot of startups in this space, you see them try to build these boats from scratch and try to do everything, right? And part of our humility was the understanding that, as Dan mentioned, boat building, it's a multi-generational thing, right? It's not something you're going to tack your way out of. It's not something you're going to wake up and say, I'm going to raise $600 million, buy a shipyard, and then I'm going to build the best ships, right? That's not how it works. Like that, people have been building boats for 5,000 years. And so we wanted to utilize that. I'll tell you, we've been looking to put our autonomy stack on bigger vessels. And we've been looking at a lot of people. And PacMar, we at Havoc, we'd like to say show and not talk. And the first time I visited Hawaii, Dan and his team took me around to their facilities, and there were at least 15 innovative vessels they were building for various government customers that I counted, and I was so right. I was like, they are great at innovating hardware. We are awesome at innovating software, and combined, we're going to put bigger and bigger vessels into the water that are autonomous over the next year than any of our competitors are going to do it, right? They're still talking about PowerPoint slides where, Dan and I and our two companies are already working together to put things on the water.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm curious on your perspective, Dan. What was it that kind of jumped out to you guys about the work that Havoc is doing and how it would be a good partnership?
So we were having those discussions, just the opposite of what Paul was having, is like we were boat builders and, making a lot of things autonomy ready. So we've gotten some, I'll say forced partnerships, but, doing a couple other programs, mainly through the Office of Naval Research where, we were making things autonomy ready. And I was looking at, do I get into autonomy and just be another company that's doing that? Or do I find a great partner that's trying to innovate in the space, and we can be the boat builder and they can be the autonomy? We both do what we're good at, and we don't try to do, the other person's job and not do it very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious in terms of, Paul, you kind of talked about, wanting to deploy, thousands of USVs. What's the manufacturing kind of model that makes this possible? And Dan, you can maybe even lead into, the decentralized model and how you guys are anticipating your scale as well.
Okay. Yeah. So that's exactly what we're approaching this at. So you look at some of the other companies that are out there and they just want to go vertical on everything and trying to be the best at boat builder and trying to be the best at a software company and trying to be the best at a boat designer. There's just too much. So, rather than trying to, and it becomes a real workforce issue too. You're trying to build up a capability all there. So if the contracts come or don't come, you're relying on what you have latent. So we've got a very good core capability, and then we're going to reach out, and we are reaching out to, other manufacturers that can, we can use their 10 or 20 or 30% excess capacity off the top and use a lot of them. And that's one of the beauties of composite construction is once you make a mold, you can duplicate the mold and you can put that into multiple things, multiple people, and then have it come together and do the assembly or the integration in one place. And it really takes a lot of the serial production load off of you. So you can try to parallel the whole designs and whole building, together with, then parallel outfitting.
Yeah. Yeah, Paul, your take on it too, just how you anticipate, the scale of it.
Uh, Dan just hit it right. So, when we were starting Havoc 18 months ago, we went out and we one of our first thing was we asked ourselves, hey, can we take existing boats and then just put our stuff on it and see if it's autonomous? And we realized we could do it. And we ended up talking to boat builders, literally to take the sailboat that they were selling and to say, hey, can you build hundreds of these sailboats? And immediately the first question some of these boat manufacturers asked us was like, what are you trying to do? And we explained it. And to them, they were like, I don't understand why you think this is difficult. We built new boats, every month. And this is what we do. We're good at boat building, as Dan said. And so that's when we realized the point that Dan just hit on, that most of these commercial boat builders have some excess capacity, right? 30 to 40%. As a business, your goal is to optimize everything, right? So once they realized that they could fill those excess capacity with boat orders from Havoc, it was mind blowing, right? And as Dan said, there are a lot of manufacturers all over the place that we could tap into. What is important is to get the boat design correct, right? And that's where a partnership with Havoc and PacMar is going to be very fruitful, right? Dan understands the Pacific. His company understands how to build very innovative boats that are, as he mentioned, autonomy ready. And we understand what it takes to put lots of these boats on the water, right? We've got 5 to 10 boats that we put on the water every day. And the things we learn every day, you can't recreate in simulation, right? Most of our competitors are doing this in simulation, and there are companies that advertise this, right? Be like, look at this one autonomous software company that's purely using our simulation software. I don't think sometimes they understand what they're saying, right? Like to say that simulation is going to mirror reality on the order of thousands of vessels, it's not truthful, right? And it doesn't match reality. You got to put boats on the water, and Dan knows this from boating around Hawaii a lot, right? There are things you see in the environmentals that you're just never going to see. So that's why we're excited about this partnership. I think they know how to build innovative boats and how to manufacture them at scale, and we know how to take that boats on the order of thousands and make them work together. Right? And we're going to field thousands of boats into the Pacific over the next 2 years. That's affordable, but that also just works, right, to give the warfighters exactly what they need.
Mm. Yeah, you're seeing a lot of these startups kind of popping up in real time with the push for more manufacturing localized, and yeah, it seems like a pretty tall order to see, kind of like what you mentioned, Paul, like who's actually talking the talk and or walking the walk, right? And so of course, there's a need for the country at large. But I'm curious, Dan, maybe you can expand a little bit more into like, what are some of the types of missions or scenarios that these boats are being built for, and what maybe describe some of these boats and kind of give our listeners a little bit of a visualization of what they might expect seeing out there.
So off the top, I don't want us to get lose sight of the fact that the Navy is always going to need aircraft carriers and destroyers and cruisers and frigates and large metal ships that are out there. And there is a whole program that the president has stood up, and the Navy's behind for revolutionary shipbuilding for our ships and our submarines that are out there. And you see some of that's happening is, can we be, a modular builder for an aircraft carrier, for getting into modular construction. And that is an industry, and that's not one we want to be in. So then how do we say that, even if we made a 20% improvement right now in, the efficiencies of our big shipyards, what's that difference over 5 years? Let's say we're programming 2 submarines every year. We're actually, I say we, but the Navy is delivering 1.2 submarines a year. So even if you got 20% more efficient, over 5 years, that only buys you 0.6, 0.8 of another submarine, so that's not a game changer. So then we look at, hey, with small autonomous systems, that can be a game changer that's out there. And even within the small autonomous systems, I think there's a range that you have to have for it. Paul's initial vessels with the Rampage are great for small picket areas, for intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, but they've got a smaller payload just by virtue of them being a smaller boat. So now we're looking up to a 42 footer that we have that we're currently working on making autonomous. And then we are doing a ship alteration on a 100-foot vessel that we had from a past project. We're going to change the shape of the hull a little bit. We're going to put some of our new hydro tricks on it with the new bow lifting body on it. And we think this thing's going to be very, very efficient. And it's going to give you very big payload capacity. So then that's the next thing that's out there in these swarming autonomous systems, is getting into the logistics and the resupply. So I go back to the PT boats. I always seem to go back to this during World War II. You look, and they had what they called the plywood derby at the time, and there was a range of boats from 50 foot to 80 foot at the time, and these were innovative craft. They were the first real planing hulls that were out there. The other ones are all just displacement hulls. So, you really want to look at getting the speed up. And one of the things that they came out on the initial report was the 50-footer was, just couldn't handle the seas. So, that's where we're looking at with the hydrodynamics that we have put into our boats over the years is how can we, make a 42-footer in this case really open ocean capable. And that's what you're going to need. A lot of people talk about long ranges, but if you've ever been off the coast of Hawaii and in any but the most calm weather, you're going to get beat up. And then the other thing that they did is they innovated with they call them plywood boats. They're really double plank mahogany PT boats, but that took the pressure off of all the steel building that was out there. So we're going to do the same thing with composites. How can you do it quickly with a little different workforce to really, like Paul said, get these thousands of boats out there as an extension of, our large, exquisite, crude platforms.
Yeah. Yeah. Super fascinating. Paul, Dan kind of alluded a little bit to it with Rampage, but maybe go into a little bit more detail on, some of those scenarios and describe a little bit more about the boats that you guys are working on.
Yeah, hopefully you see why this partnership is going to be incredibly productive, right? Like we understand each other. What Dan's explanation of the problem, it's exactly that, all right? You think about the capital ships, we're always going to need them, right? But the issue with this is they can't get too close, right? Because the other side also have missiles that can shoot at these big capital ships, right? Think carriers, destroyers. And so, what we're trying to figure out is how do we complement them, right? How do we protect them? Because if you think about it, a DDG, I think it's like $2 billion maybe for what one cost. If one gets taken out, that's a big deal, right? So what we want to do is to put thousands of these Rampage vessels out there, force the enemy to target those vessels. Like the Rampage vessels are $100,000, which is what we sell it to the DoD for. So if they're shooting $1 million missile at $100,000 boats, that's winning, right? If you think about war, I'm sure all three of us, if you have studied, wars in the past, it is at the end of it, it's economics, right? Like economics win. So we're seeing this in the Red Sea. The Houthis forced us to shoot $1 billion of missiles at their remote control drones, and that's not sustainable, right? So that's basically what we're trying to do with autonomous surface vessels, right? As Dan alluded to, you're going to need all sizes of autonomous vessels to do these things. But the biggest thing is, no matter how big these autonomous vessels are, they're still way drastically more affordable than, let's say, a DDG, right? And it doesn't carry 150 people, which is a tragedy, right? If a DDG gets taken out, that's 150 lives that you put in danger. So these autonomous vessels should take some of the missions, right? That the DDGs can't do because they can't get too close. And so that's what we're going to do. The Rampages, as Dan alluded to, the Pacific is unforgiving, right? So you have to think through it. So one of the basic things we do is make sure the boats are self-righting. And people are like, "Oh, this is crazy. This is innovative. How did you guys come up with that?" Well, we didn't come up with it. Like, that's my reps have been self-righting for like 100 years. We copied it. And so like sometimes people just forget that you don't need to. Innovation isn't always just creating something new. And then, it's also using what has been proven and adapting it to a use case, right? In our case, we're like, well, like the 14-foot vessels are going to get beat up in the Pacific. How do we make sure they're still useful? And we're like, well, make it self-righting, right? So that if it flips, it always comes back up. And so that's what we did. So, at $100,000, putting 1,000 of these boats in the ocean costs $100 million, right? Which is reasonable when you're talking about it. For our competitors who are charging in the 1.5 to 2 million, you could do the math, right? That's like a $2 billion. Now the DoD has to decide between, do I get a new destroyer or do I get 1,000 autonomous vessels, right? And you don't want that to be the decision because, destroyers are always going to get needed. Right? And so that's what we're doing. We also think that distributing the capabilities over thousands of miles, it's what autonomy enables you, right? Imagine rather than one destroyer monitoring 100 miles, 1,000 vessels in the Pacific monitoring, 2,000 miles, right? If you take out, say, 100 of those vessels, it's not a big deal. You're still monitoring all 2,000 miles. And so you start to see some of the use cases that what we call precision mass and this hellscape that Admiral Paparo is talking about really provides, right? It's also the reason we're a 10-month-old company, but the Chinese sanctioned us, right? Because they are listening to what we're saying and they realize when we're successful in putting thousands of vessels in the Pacific, it presents a tremendous problem for them, right? And then in targeting.
Yeah, I want to just kind of hear just a little bit more about the HavocAI as the company, like from an operational perspective. How many employees are a part of the team? How do you break up some of these different skill sets? What are some of these different skill sets across the company?
Yeah, so we're at 70 people. We're mostly a software company, and so the software it's what makes our boat special, right? And what's going to make the partnership we work with PacMar, right? The 42 for 100 foot, and that software is really going to make these things incredibly awesome as a capability. So the majority of our companies focused on that, right? Software, but not just just people coding. We have a lot of people that are on the business sides trying to understand, hey, what are the use cases that the customer is going to use these boats for, and understanding like how do you make the customer's life easy, right? One of the examples we just showed, we had this big demonstration in San Diego. We had 150 DoD visitors, and they saw people launching our boats. Like two people can launch our boats, right? All it takes is, you use a trailer, you push it into the water, whether it's a beach or a ramp, it doesn't matter. And then some of the program officers were like, this is exactly what we need. A lot of your competitors miss the point that they require cranes, right? And we're talking about boats our size that require cranes from our competitors. And if you think about it, you can't put cranes on all of these islands. Right, like the infrastructure to do that is crazy. So that's what we do, right? A lot of the companies focused on how do we deliver capabilities that work right now, right? Not just on PowerPoint, but like can we deploy thousands into the island chains right now? And the other big piece of the company is operations, right? We have 42 vessels that we're operating right now that just requires people on the water, which, when the weather is good, it's fun. Right. So we spent a lot of time on the boats. So that's what it is. We're at about 70 people supporting that. Obviously, the partnership with PacMar was starting to step up for that to have a decent amount of people in Hawaii. But that's what makes Havoc fun, right? We literally put out a job posting for engineers to live in Hawaii, which we got thousands.
I'm sure.
Everyone in their 20s was like, of course I want to live in Hawaii.
I'm sure you got flooded with inbounds. What about
go live in Hawaii?
What about from a funding perspective? How has that been in terms of raising capital?
It's been incredibly fruitful for us on the capital market. I think the investors have been very generous. I think there are three things that are happening right now. at this moment, if you think about it, right? So the investors are finally coming to the realization that, hey, it's okay to invest in national security, right? It's okay to help solve the problem. I think like 10 years ago, they were kind of still hesitant to, but now the environment has changed to that. Like they see that it's profit, right? At the end of the day, investors want a return, and they're starting to see that, hey, there is a way where startups can make a lot of money from providing national security solutions. So the investors are starting to play. Obviously, companies like ours, founded by veterans, and most of the company, our company, are veterans. We want to help solve the problem, right? Obviously, we're a commercial business, so we want to make money, but that goes hand in hand, right? We think you can make money and you can solve relevant national security problems. And the third piece is the government. Finally, the government, it's getting rid of bureaucracy. A lot of these processes in the past that have prevented innovative startups from actually providing capability. Like if you think about it, we got 32 of our vessels with the DoD, and we did that in a year, right? We've shipped our vessels on C5s, Air Force C5s, which would take, 5 years ago, which would have taken a year just to do the paperwork. Now we were able to do it in like 1 to 2 months. So those three things aligning has been very fruitful for startups like Havoc.
Yeah. Yeah. We talk about it a lot on the podcast, just, tech modernization across defense and how it's changing so quickly in the last few years, and the need to break down some of that bureaucracy and open up more opportunities for industry partners to get involved and help solve these problems at scale. Dan, I guess just kind of, in closing, any more light you can shed on PacMar, a little bit more about the company at large, similar maybe like headcount and how you all are anticipating growth, with some of this, a partnership with Havoc.
So I'll say, and we purposely keep these separate. So PacMar Technologies, we're the naval architecture and prototyping, and then Pacific Shipyards International is my sister company, which we're co-located together with. So we're about 100. They go between 250 to 400, depending on how much ship repair and how much subs they bring on. So that gives us tremendous power to leverage our sister company. So, if we need cranes or if we need support, and then we also have a full operational branch that goes out and does, at sea supports. We either local Hawaiian type stuff. We also are working with another company that does some unmanned vessels at sea that we go lasso them when they're off of Hawaii, and we
Cool.
package them up and ship them. So we know how to operate at sea, just like Havoc knows how to operate at sea. And then our ability to flex between these two companies, and really leverage off of each other. When Pacific Shipyards need some naval architecture help, we're there to help them. If we need more of the production labor type things, then we pull people over into our company. So it's a really symbiotic relationship that we're able to move forward with.
Yeah, that's really creative that you're able to kind of tap into the sister companies as needed. I'm sure that was part of the appeal as well from your side, Paul, with this partnership. Awesome. Well, yeah, excited for obviously, more to unfold on this partnership. We'll have to do a follow-up episode maybe in a year and kind of see where everything stands. But appreciate you guys joining in on this conversation, hear more about this partnership and how you guys are pushing the boundaries on maritime innovation. Before we wrap, we close with a final segment called the 5-second scramble. It's kind of a real quick, kind of rapid fire, Q&A. Try to keep the answer within 5 seconds. We won't air horn you off or anything, but let's dive into it. Paul, I'm gonna start with you. If HavocAI were an animal, what animal would it be?
A hound. That's what we do, right? We hunt as a pack.
I love it. What's your favorite part about the culture at HavocAI?
The drive to get real things built, and build real things.
Nice. What kind of technologist thrives in your environment?
I think a generalist, right? Someone who understands what technologies are available and who is looking to integrate them and write very sophisticated software to make things that weren't intended to be, say, an autonomous boat be an autonomous boat.
What are some of the tech roles that you're anticipating, hiring up for in the next 6 months?
Oh, wow. A lot of autonomy engineers, robotics engineers. We're trying to, as you're seeing the explosion in like LLMs and Gen AI, we're starting to incorporate some of the stuff that's relevant there, right? If you think about controlling thousands of boats, there are a lot of innovative and sophisticated things we can do to help the operator. So you'll see us hire a lot more AI ML engineers with LLM backgrounds.
What's a charity or corporate philanthropy that's near and dear to you?
I think anything veteran related, right? I think so. We through a lot of the veteran organizations try to hire a lot of veterans. Obviously, it's not just charity, right? I think the problems that we're solving requires a deep understanding. And so, I think the Navy Reserve is recognizing us as like a company that it's awesome for reservists to work at. And, we were surprised. It's not like, it's not a charity thing we're doing. It's just we're a defense tech company, right? So, of course, we're going to hire people with defense experience.
Yeah. Have you ever used, I guess, like SkillBridge as an outlet to hire?
All of those, yeah. SkillBridge. What are the other ones? Sorry, I'm drawing the blank, but there's 2 or 3 that we get veterans that are transitioning out through.
Yeah, very cool. What was your first car?
With the Mustang, Ford Mustang.
Oh, dang! What year was it?
Probably like a '99. So I got one in college.
That's awesome. What's your favorite place to kind of explore the outdoors?
Washington State. So I was stationed in Whidbey Island for about 5 years, and to this day, I still remember. I don't know if you've been there, but so many awesome places in the Northwest. It's one of the most beautiful places ever.
Yeah, nice. It's on the bucket list to get out there. And last one, what was your dream job as a kid?
I wanted to be an astronaut, so I failed at it. But I think I tell my kids all the time, shoot for the stars, and maybe you'll just end up being flying jets, right? Which is pretty cool.
It got pretty close. Very cool. All right, we'll wrap with you, Dan. Are you ready?
Standing by.
All right. Yeah, some similar questions here. So if PacMar were an animal, what animal would it be?
I would say a mastiff.
Oh, nice. A large presence.
Big, aggressive, large presence dog that wants to come after you.
I dig it. What's your favorite part about the culture at PacMar?
I think there's just a drive to get everybody together and look toward innovation. It's always exciting here every day that, we're all, unity of the mission, everybody gets together, everybody's, willing to lend a hand at all times.
What kind of folks would you say kind of thrive at PacMar from an employee mold?
They have to think out of the box a little bit, and really have that desire to, go from napkin sketch to, to prototypes and then into production from there. Sort of a unique skill set that, there's a group that just wants to know what's going to be next for them the next day. And those don't work very well at our company.
What kind of roles are you anticipating, hiring up for over the next 6 to 12 months?
We're always looking for good naval architects. Actually, I've got a fair amount of aerospace people that come, and it's a very transferable skill. Just with an incompressible fluid vice air that you're trying to fly through the water vice fly through the air. And certainly those production facing type jobs. That are always there.
Very cool. What is your go-to breakfast food in the morning?
I usually do yogurt and granola. Not that exciting.
The healthy route. What was your first job?
I went right through from high school and Naval Academy. I guess I can say I worked at Bennigan's as a.
That's the answer we were looking for. Yeah, that's the answer we were looking for. What's a surprising hobby of yours?
Surprising hobby. I don't know that it's that surprising, but I grew up on the outskirts of Detroit. Both my brothers and my dad all work supporting the auto industry. So, I like to work on cars. So,
Yeah, turning wrenches. Work on any good old school Ford Mustangs that Paul might be familiar with?
my first one was a '69 Le Mans convertible, where I actually had to rebuild the engine before I could drive it in high school.
Man, what a ride! That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's a charity or cause that's near and dear to you?
I think corporately we look at developing the next generation of people coming up. So we're just supporting just authorized it on Friday, Project Goal, which is a Rhode Island charity that they look at using soccer as a reward for doing well in school. There's one out in Hawaii called the Palama Settlement. We gave in honor of our 80th anniversary as a company, we gave them $80,000 last year to that's a really kind of working class, salt of the earth kind of neighborhood, and it's a local community center. So things like that. We also when the Lahaina fires happened over in Lahaina on Maui, we loaded up our 70-foot vessel and made a couple runs over there to deliver supplies. So
wow, that's
kind of
awesome.
that relief service area type things.
Very cool. Yeah, and we'll put a plug in for those charities in the show notes when the episode's released. And last question: favorite Disney character?
Favorite Disney character? I guess I'll go Stitch.
Yeah, that's top of mind too, right? The new one's out or coming out, but
yeah.
Good stuff, guys. Appreciate the rapid fire Q&A and obviously the conversation at large, sharing your insights on the future of maritime innovations and the mission focused work that you both are doing. It's much appreciated. So appreciate y'all telling the story and looking forward to hearing more about it. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.